My name is Michelle Johnson. I have a husband who's 2 years older than me and a daughter in elementary school. Both my husband and I work. I was a dedicated designer at a certain apparel company. Then one day, I received a phone call at work.
What? My parents were in an accident.
I was in shock. It turned out that my parents had died in an accident while on vacation. My parents, who were close to each other, used to go on trips about once a month. On that day, it seemed they were driving to a tourist destination, but they apparently fell off a cliff on the way. They were found by a passerby, but it was too late. I was stunned, but I managed to leave work early and decided to call my husband first. Hey. I need to talk to you about something important.
What is it? I'm busy, you know?
My husband sounded irritated over the phone. Even so, I took a deep breath and continued the conversation. Actually, my dad and mom have passed away.
Really? Is that true?
Yes. They had an accident during their trip. When they were found, it was already too late. As I talked about my parents, I couldn't help but cry. I was sobbing while on the phone.
Ah, what a hassle. Stop crying, will you? How can you say it's a hassle? My parents are gone. I'm on a business trip right now. Don't call me for such trivial things. Trivial? That's a terrible thing to say. What do you think my parents were to me? Of course, I appreciate what they did for me, but to me, they were practically strangers. Besides, there's no point dwelling on the dead. There might be a funeral coming up, but I can't attend. What? Even though they're family? I told you, as far as I'm concerned, they were strangers. I can't afford to take off work for strangers. So, don't call me anymore.
With that, my husband hung up the call abruptly. I wondered how he could say such cruel things. At that moment, I felt something break inside me. In the beginning, my husband always put me first and seemed to care a lot about me. When he found out I was pregnant, he cried with joy, and during the pregnancy, he was very considerate, almost to the point where I felt embarrassed. Even after our daughter was born, we used to have a good time together, but about a year ago, he started acting distant towards me. He stopped coming home often, and his attitude towards me grew colder. It wasn't that he disliked me, he just seemed to lose interest in me. He used to notice even the slightest changes in me, but now, even if I cut my hair short, he wouldn't care. No matter how much I tried to dress up to catch his attention, he would ridicule me instead.
Come on, at your age, why are you wearing that outfit? You're not young anymore, stop wearing floral skirts. You look shabby.
That's horrible. You used to compliment me.
You've gained weight since we got married, haven't you? I guess having a child really takes away a woman's charm. This is like a fraud.
He would mock my appearance like this. His unkind words hurt me deeply. Our daughter seemed to notice that we weren't getting along. She always seemed worried about me when I was being subjected to his harsh words. One day, as I sat in the living room, deep in thought, my mother-in-law, who was living with us, came over. Actually, we built our own house and started living with my in-laws when our daughter started elementary school. Seeing me cry, my mother-in-law looked displeased.
Hey, what's a grown woman like you crying for?
Actually, my dad and mom just died.
What? How?
They had an accident on their trip.
Both of them gone at once, they really were inseparable. But hey, you're lucky to get the insurance money for both of them. Let's go out for a nice meal with everyone to celebrate. How can you say that? My parents have died. How can you be so cruel? People die eventually, it just happened sooner for them. Stop crying and get dinner ready, will you? I'm hungry.
My mother-in-law is what you'd call a classic case of a difficult mother-in-law. I had hoped that hearing about my parents' death, she would offer some kind words. But it seemed she didn't have a compassionate bone in her body. So, I started preparing for the funeral with the help of my relatives. My husband, claiming he was too busy with work, didn't even attend. I couldn't believe how heartless he was. After my parents' funeral, I decided to start preparing for a divorce. Once everything was in order, I left a voicemail for my husband, who was still on his business trip.
I'm going on a long business trip. Please, take good care of your parents.
That's all I said in the message. I had no more regrets. I left the house where I had lived for so many years with my belongings. A few hours later, while working at the office, I was called in by HR. My husband, drenched in sweat, had come looking for me. I had been ignoring his calls. He probably thought he'd find me at work. Truthfully, I didn't even want to see his face anymore, but I didn't want to cause a scene at work, so I reluctantly agreed to meet him. When I stepped into the entrance, there he was, looking extremely flustered.
Michelle! What's this all about? Mom and Dad are in a mess. Give me a break. I'm sorry, but you can't just show up like this. I'm working, you know? Besides, weren't you supposed to be on a business trip? I rushed back as soon as I got Dad's call. After you left, they were struggling without you. Mom's in the hospital, Dad's bedridden, and your stuff is gone. What happened?
I decided to explain everything to him, step by step.
Your mother's diabetes got worse, and she had to be hospitalized urgently. You knew she had diabetes, right? I knew, but it wasn't a big deal, was it? She always seemed fine at home. She might have looked fine, but her condition was serious. She collapsed with a severe headache. After some tests, they said she needed to be hospitalized. She wasn't taking her medication or going to her doctor's appointments, so her condition worsened. And why is Dad bedridden? Your father threw out his back trying to take your mother to the hospital. He's always had a weak back. And trying to lift your mother, who's nearly 220 pounds, didn't help. What? Really?
My husband was visibly shocked and speechless for a while. My mother-in-law had been suffering from diabetes for about 2 years. She always loved greasy foods and high-calorie snacks, often snacking whenever she had time. I tried to make low-calorie meals for her, considering her condition, but it seemed more annoying to her than anything else.
What is this? The meatloaf hardly tastes like meat. I added soy pulp to the meatloaf, thinking it would help you feel fuller and be better for your health. This is inedible. I don't want to eat such a poor meal. I'm not eating this food.
With that, my mother-in-law threw the meatloaf I made into the sink. This wasn't the first time she had discarded a meal I prepared. Even seeing her do this, my husband turned a blind eye. Worse, he would sometimes blame me for it.
Can't you stop doing things that upset Mom? Like that meatloaf, you're practically picking a fight. I was thinking of her health. If she keeps eating high-calorie meals, it could be life-threatening. That's none of your business. Let her eat what she wants. And don't you dare do something like this again. I'm the one who has to deal with the fallout.
As for my father-in-law, he never got involved in our arguments. It was more about not wanting to get dragged into it than indifference. I can't believe I put up with my husband and mother-in-law for so long. I had thought about divorce many times. But I hesitated because I didn't want to take my daughter's father away from her. Living without a father isn't always seen positively. But I can't live with this man anymore. I've made up my mind.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk to you anymore. Can you please leave? I don't want to cause trouble at work. No! I need answers. Let's talk properly. Fine. Let's go somewhere else.
It was lunchtime. So we decided to go to a nearby cafe. As soon as we sat down, my husband asked,
So, what are you going to do about Mom and Dad? You're gonna quit your job and take care of them, right? What? Why should I, a stranger, take care of them? They're your parents. You deal with it. They're your parents, so you should take care of them. Stranger? They're my mom and dad. Sure, we're not blood related, but we're still family. Well, we're going to be strangers soon, so it's none of my business anymore. Why should I care for your parents after we're divorced? Strangers? What are you talking about?
He seemed to be missing the important point.
Didn't you see the divorce papers I left in the living room? I've already filled in my part. I need you to sign it too. Divorce?
He was so preoccupied with his parents' situation that he hadn't paid much attention to the house. He was so shocked that he stood up abruptly.
Please sit down, you're drawing attention. Michelle, are you serious about this divorce? Dead serious. Do I look like someone who jokes? I thought you were just going on a long business trip. That was a lie. I'm actually transferring to a different department in another state. The move is a bit later, though. What? I didn't hear anything about that. After I told my company that I might get divorced, they offered me a transfer. And I'm not telling you which state I'm going to. What? Are you really serious about getting divorced?
He looked at me in disbelief, not expecting things to have progressed this far without his knowledge.
Divorcing will hurt our daughter. Have you thought about her? Are you in any position to say that? After all the betrayals? What? What are you talking about? I haven't betrayed you. On the contrary, I've been working for you and our family. Don't you have any gratitude for me? Gratitude? When you hardly contributed to our living expenses?
My husband stumbled over his words at that. He had started contributing less to our living expenses about 2 years ago, citing a decrease in his salary. Initially, we split the expenses evenly, but gradually, more of the burden fell on me. There were even times when he didn't contribute a single cent. Fortunately, I worked for a decent company and earned a fairly good salary. Even more than my husband.
You don't contribute to the living expenses, leave all the childcare to me, and at home, there's a mean mother-in-law who picks on me. What benefit do I have staying with you? There's no such thing as benefits or drawbacks in a marriage. We married because we loved each other. Maybe I felt that way back then, but not anymore. You love someone else now, don't you? What are you talking about?
He said this, but his eyes were clearly darting around, betraying his nervousness.
I know about it. You've been having an affair with a young woman at work. It's been going on for about a year now, hasn't it? Her name is Lily, right? A slender woman with long black hair, just your type. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? Are you confused or has someone been feeding you lies? No, I hired a private detective to investigate you. I suspected you might be cheating, but I never thought it would be with a woman 10 years younger. And she's married, right? Just got married, and yet, is this okay? You investigated me? Of course. If we're getting divorced, I have to look out for my own interests. With this, I'll get compensation from both of you, which should stabilize my life for a while.
He must have thought his affair was a secret. He was visibly shocked. After deciding to divorce my husband, I hired a private detective to investigate. Since he stopped coming home, his behavior had become suspicious. He started locking his phone, making secretive calls in another room, leaving the house with unusually large bags. I tried not to worry, but he was indeed having an affair. The woman was a temp worker. Apparently, it was she who made advances towards my husband.
She was the one who approached me. She never seemed satisfied with just one man and hit on me at a drinking party. Of course, I rejected her, but she was persistent, and I couldn't resist. So, you're saying it's not your fault? Sure, she was seeing other men, but you're also responsible for getting involved. What? She was with other men? According to the detective, she's been with at least 3 others besides you. She told me I was the only one.
My husband slammed his fist on the table, showing his irritation. From the detective agency's investigation, I found out that the woman he was having an affair with is married to a high-ranking executive of a major company. She's nearly 2 decades older than my husband, and it seems like she married him for his money. My husband's infidelity is bad enough, but she's no better. In a way, they're two of a kind. But I was just messing around with her.
It was just a casual thing, you know. Neither of us intended to ruin our families. You think messing around excuses everything? Maybe I can deal with it, but what about our daughter? What if she gets harassed at school because of your affair? That's the fault of whoever's spreading rumors. It's the kids who poke their noses into other people's business that are the problem.
You always blame others. You cheated and you haven't even said sorry once. You show no remorse at all.
I'm sorry, okay. I'll break it off with her. Isn't that enough?
It's far from enough. I'm leaving you, and I'll be demanding alimony from both of you. At the mention of alimony, my husband's face turned pale.
If you go after her for alimony, that means you'll have to tell Lily's husband about us, right? Lily just got married, that's so unfair to her.
The one who deserves sympathy is Lily's husband, who got betrayed right after getting married. And for your information, I've already informed Lily's husband about the affair.
What?
You hadn't heard from Lily?
No, she's been off sick from work for a while, and I couldn't get in touch with her.
She must have been too shocked to contact anyone.
Are you serious? What am I going to do if this gets out at work?
You brought this on yourself. And you two were using your paid leave to meet up, weren't you?
How do you know all this?
You've been on business trips a lot lately, so I asked your company about it. They said you weren't on any trips, just using your paid leave. I checked, and Lily was off on the same days. You were meeting up, right?
What?
My husband fell silent, looking down. He must know he's caught. Just then, an unexpected person approached us.
What are you doing here? Weren't you on paid leave today? Boss?
It was my husband's boss from the same department. Apparently, the boss often comes to this cafe around lunchtime. My husband looked embarrassed.
You said you needed the day off for family matters, right? Yes, that's right.
His boss, sensing something was off, seemed to have put two and two together. I decided to fill him in on the situation. He knew I was his wife, as we had met a couple of times before. Actually, this guy's been having an affair with a young woman at work, a temp named Lily Young.
What?
Is that true? His boss shouted, loud enough for others to hear.
Boss, please lower your voice, everyone's looking.
Of course they are. I'd be shocked too if my employee was having an affair. And he used his paid leave to meet up with her. You did that during our busiest time?
I'm sorry. I'm going to break up with her, so can you keep it a secret from the other employees?
What are you saying? Of course, I'm going to report this. You're in sales, right? Sales is about selling your character as much as the product. No one's going to buy anything from someone who betrays his own family. You might not get fired, but don't think you can stay in your current department.
Wait, please. I don't know any other kind of work, and if I'm transferred, my salary.
I don't care about your problems. You should be apologizing to your wife. You've hurt her.
I know I did something wrong, but this has nothing to do with my job.
It does, that's why I'm telling you. I've lost all trust in you. We have plenty of capable employees. I'll find someone else to lead the next project. It turned out my husband was the leader of an important project. If it succeeded, he was almost guaranteed a promotion. He had been preparing for it for a long time.
That's not fair. You said I was the right person for the job.
Not anymore. I've lost all faith in you. I'll report to the higher-ups right away. Excuse me. After his boss left the cafe, my husband just hung his head. His boss said he was supposed to take a lunch break, but he had to go back to the office right away to report about my husband.
It's over. Everything was going so well. Why did it have to come to this?
His voice trembled, and he looked like he might cry any moment. I'm going to leave the rest to my lawyer, so let's discuss through him from now on. I left his business card on the living room table, so give him a call if there's anything.
You're really serious about divorcing me?
He asked me with tears in his eyes. It seemed too late for such questions. I nodded firmly.
That's what I said. I can't stand living with a cheater anymore. And I've had enough of your mother too. You always turned a blind eye when she was mean to me. I told you several times I wanted to stop living with her, but you wouldn't listen. You never took my side, even though you saw how she treated me. You always said I was overthinking it. I didn't realize you were so troubled about my mom. I'll be more careful from now on.
It's too late for that. You'll have your hands full with visiting the hospital and caregiving for your parents.
There's no way I can manage that. Hospital bills aren't cheap, and I have to work. How am I supposed to take care of my dad?
Maybe you should consider changing your job. It's gonna be awkward at your current company anyway.
Don't say it like it's easy. Please, I'm sorry for the affair. Come back to me.
It's impossible. I've already arranged for a transfer at work, and our daughter is preparing to transfer schools too.
I don't want to get divorced.
Then, in the cafe, he started crying loudly. He looked like a child who couldn't get the toy he wanted. I was so embarrassed that I decided to leave him there and walk out. He continued to cry even after I left. And it seems some young people in the cafe found it amusing and recorded it, uploading it to social media with a blurred face. Although the video was quickly removed, it seems his colleagues saw it. We officially divorced through our lawyers. I demanded a lump sum in alimony from both my ex-husband and his mistress. I also arranged for my ex to pay child support for our daughter, with my lawyer making sure he keeps up with the payments. His mistress ended up divorcing her husband too. My ex-husband was also sued for alimony by her ex-husband. Both my ex and his mistress found it hard to stay at their jobs and left, seemingly running away. They dated for a while, but she left him because she didn't want to take care of his parents. She's still young, so she probably ran off to some other guy. Now, my ex has to take care of his father at home, so he's not working full-time, just getting by with part-time jobs. As for me, I'm focusing on my work in my new department. I've been given important tasks and even got a small raise. My daughter had to transfer schools, but she's made friends quickly and seems happy. I've become a single mother, but I have no regrets. I'm sure my parents are watching over me. I want to live strongly, watching over my beloved daughter's growth.
I'm going to live here with my eldest son, his wife, and my grandchild.
John declared this loudly, puffing out his chest with confidence. Behind him, Michael and Linda smirked at me maliciously. How can they be so selfish? I felt dizzy, but more than that, I couldn't stand the thought of my happiness being threatened. It must have shown on my face. Michael, as if to deliver the final blow, taunted me. If you resist, I won't take care of you. I don't remember raising a child like this, but I regret that it's come to this. Still, I pretended to take the bait and firmly stated, "Then I'll leave." No one there expected that response. They stared at me, faces blank with surprise. Then John, coming to his senses, pointed at me and started yelling.
"You're leaving? If you do that, you'll be out on the streets. If you think you're threatening me, think again."
I could tell his words were a bluff by the sweat on his forehead. So I looked straight at John with a bold demeanor. My name is Emma Young, a 53-year-old remote worker. I met John, my husband, when I started working and married him after several years of dating. Shortly after we got married, I got pregnant and had a healthy boy, Michael. Michael is now married and has a child of his own. John used to be very kind, always caring for me. But a few years after our marriage, his attitude began to change. After quitting my job to become a full-time homemaker following childbirth, John's treatment of me grew colder, and I was often treated harshly. I considered divorce several times, but couldn't decide because Michael was still a baby. I thought raising a child needed cooperation, but that ideal was quickly shattered. If Michael cried at night, John would click his tongue, and if I couldn't prepare his breakfast due to lack of sleep, he would yell at me early in the morning. Despite this, I couldn't help but look forward to seeing Michael grow up. When Michael began to understand things, it was a joy to see who he would call first, me or John. I won that small battle. Knowing this, John started to engage more with Michael. For example, he would entertain Michael while I cooked, or he would willingly bathe him. As a result of John's continued indulgence, Michael, contrary to my hopes, began to mimic John's behavior. Once Michael could do things on his own, he became more mischievous. When I scolded him, he would retort with John's words. When Michael didn't clean up his toys after playing, I told him to tidy up, and he snapped back.
Shut up. If you want it cleaned up so badly, ask more nicely.
Then, after I properly scolded him face to face, he would clean up with a disgruntled face, but soon he'd be back to his old ways. I worried he would become a nuisance to others and talked to John about it, but he said, "He's a boy, he needs to be energetic. He'll behave once he's older." Indulging him like this, Michael grew up mischievous. There were countless difficulties, but somehow, I managed to raise him until he graduated from college. It seemed like neither John nor Michael understood my struggles, and I felt burdened with unreasonable feelings as Michael started living alone. Honestly, when Michael left, I felt relieved and returned to living with just John in our house. Until then, Michael's presence had distracted me from John's bad behavior. But now, in the suddenly quiet house, John's negative traits stood out more. His attitude hadn't changed since our marriage years ago, but his unreasonable behavior now took a toll on my mental health. One day, when I was almost fed up, Michael brought a woman home. He said she was his fiancée and they were planning to get married soon. I was overjoyed that Michael, who had been nothing but trouble, was getting married. His fiancée, Linda, appeared strong-willed but was soft-spoken and very polite. She seemed an unlikely match for Michael, but I had no complaints since she chose him. John also approved of their marriage right away. They planned to live in Michael's current apartment after marriage, not with us, but the thought of a lively future made me happy. I know things are gonna get tough for you guys, so feel free to rely on me. They had both been living alone until now, but they would be living together from now on. I wanted to be a support for them, expecting they might face various challenges. But after they got married, they frequently visited, taking over the living room from morning till night, joining us for shopping only to add unnecessary items to the cart and leave me to pay. I started to feel fed up with Michael and Linda's behavior. Then, when Michael and Linda, who used to frequent our house, suddenly stopped visiting, I received a surprising call.
Hey, listen to this. We're having a baby.
Michael sounded ecstatic over the phone. John and I congratulated them on their first grandchild.
Good job, Michael. So, when's the baby due?
What? Didn't you hear me? The baby's here, that's why I'm calling from the hospital. It turned out Michael was announcing not a pregnancy, but the birth of their child. Shocked, we rushed to the hospital to see our grandchild. After that whirlwind of events, Michael and Linda started visiting often again. It was great seeing my grandchild, but they would leave me with the baby and go out. And to top it off, they'd say, "Emma, the baby's fine with just milk, thanks." Yeah, lucky to have you, Mom. It's great to have someone to leave the baby with when we go out. They'd laugh as they left me with the baby. Actually, I had started working from home around that time. When Michael brought Linda over, I proposed to John that we leave this house. What are you talking about? If we do that, where will we live? John complained immediately, but I quickly countered with a new proposal. Let's build a new house. Don't worry, I'll also work from home. My parents are getting older, and I'm thinking of living with them. Let's give this house to Michael and Linda, and we can live in a new one. Living together would mean we'd need a house of a certain size and layout, but I convinced him that by combining his income and mine, we could reach our goal. Reluctantly, he agreed, and I began working from home right away. Even when I was tasked with caring for my grandchild or dealing with John's unreasonable outbursts, I never missed a day of work. During these times, the moment finally came to realize my dream. John, albeit reluctantly, agreed to save money for a new house to live with my parents. He wouldn't cooperate unless I pushed him, and I faced more unreasonable behavior. But reaching our goal made all that seem insignificant.
John, we've finally reached our goal. I'm going to see my parents now to discuss moving forward.
I had been talking to John about the new house, but now I could have a proper discussion with my parents involved. Leaving a grumbling John behind, I headed to my parents' place. Despite multiple intrusions from Michael and Linda, just the thought of living soon in a new house with my parents brightened my mood. My work was going well, and I was finally able to purchase the house I had always wanted. I reported this to John, looking forward to the day of the handover. Then, on the day of the handover, as I was about to step into the house, excited, a moving truck suddenly stopped by. Stunned, I watched as the movers began unloading. And I hurriedly stopped them. I hadn't heard of such arrangements, and neither our nor my parents' belongings had been moved in yet. Whose belongings were they trying to move in? The confused mover and I were trying to understand the situation, when a loud voice came from somewhere.
What are you doing, meddling in things?
The voice belonged to John, and as I turned around, relieved to hear him, I realized the words were directed at me. I realized that those words were directed at me. John gestured dismissively at me as if I were a nuisance, while Michael and Linda were talking to the moving company staff. Then John came over to me and said this.
We're going to live here with our eldest son, his wife, and our grandchild.
John announced this loudly, chest puffed out with confidence. Michael and Linda stood behind him, smirking at me maliciously. How could they be so selfish? I felt dizzy, but more than that, I couldn't stand the thought of my happiness being threatened. That must have shown on my face. Michael, as if to deliver the final blow, taunted me. If you resist, I won't take care of you. I don't remember raising a child like this, but I regretted that it had come to this. Still, pretending to take the bait, I firmly stated. Then I'll leave. No one there expected that response. They just stared at me, faces blank with surprise. Then John, coming to his senses, pointed at me and started yelling.
You're leaving? If you do that, you'll be out on the streets. If you think you're threatening me, think again.
I could tell his words were a bluff by the sweat on his forehead. So I looked straight at John with a bold demeanor. However, my attitude was in vain, as John smirked, regaining his composure. That's right, exactly. I'm supposed to be the owner of this house. Wasn't that the agreement? Indeed, the new house was in John's name. But the purpose of building this new house was to live with my parents, and there were supposed to be other conditions too. Yet, why does John feel so entitled? When I first discussed building a new home with living with my parents in mind, John naturally brought up Michael. Going forward, it's Michael and his family who will live the longest. Wouldn't it then be better to build the new house for Michael and his family? That was a reasonable opinion, but I wanted them to achieve this on their own. So, I persistently persuaded John until he reluctantly agreed. That's why the new house was designed with as many barrier-free features as possible, geared towards my parents. Since marrying John, I hadn't spent much good time. But now that Michael is married, I should be able to live as I please. I've spent so much time on John and Michael, neglecting my parents. Now it's time to give back to them. Lost in these thoughts, I must have been glaring at John and the others. Realizing this, John mocked me. What's with that defiant look?
Struck a nerve and now you're speechless, huh?
His words infuriated me. I've put up with so much and resigned myself to his behavior until now. But this time, I couldn't just let it go. Even when John, who was once kind, changed his attitude completely. Even when Michael, imitating John, hurled harsh words at me. Even when John got angry, yelled, threw tantrums, or ignored me on a whim. Even when Linda clearly treated me disrespectfully and dumped childcare on me. I had endured all this patiently. But now, it wasn't just about me, it involved my parents too. And to have it so easily taken over like this was unbearable. Fed up, I couldn't hold back anymore.
Enough is enough. This house was supposed to be for me and my parents, and you, wasn't it? Technically, you're the owner, but strangely, the bank account for the payments is only Michael's. Who prepared everything up to this point, huh?
Yes, the condition for building this house was that it would be in John's name. I understood that. It's better for appearances. But strangely, only Michael was making the loan payments. John claimed he wanted it to look like Michael bought the house. So it seemed like he was doing a good deed for my parents. But I never understood the reason behind this arrangement. However, as long as I could live with my parents, I was okay with any form. So, although it didn't sit well with me, I agreed. Little did I know it would turn out like this. As I stated my case, John, Michael, and Linda all smirked in the same way. That's when I realized it. John had planned from the start to make this house his own. I was like a worker ant, gathering materials and building the nest, only to be manipulated at the last moment. When the house was completed and it was time to move, I realized this and snapped. Then, I presented John with the divorce papers I had kept hidden for years. I had prepared them over a decade ago, when Michael was in high school and away at a sports camp. John and I went out to dine, having the house to ourselves for a change. During the meal, we bumped into one of John's colleagues and had a bit of small talk. When the colleague tried to excuse himself, hurrying the conversation, John said something awful.
Don't worry about it. Eating out with her is just boring, but I'm the kind husband, playing along. We don't even have a reservation. Maybe I'll send her home and go for a drink. Can't stand looking at her old face.
John's colleague left with a forced smile, clearly uncomfortable. I was shocked by the verbal abuse thrown at me in public. Pretending nothing happened, we continued the meal, but I couldn't even remember its taste. The next day, I went to the office to get a divorce form. When I showed it to John, he was momentarily surprised, but then smirked.
Nice preparation. You know your stuff. Oh, finally realizing your place, are you? Thought you'd understand sooner, but glad you made it this far. And to think you understand you're disposable, how smart of you.
Exactly.
You really get it, Mom. Keep working and pay for our house, okay?
All three of them, John, Michael, and Linda, laughed at me condescendingly, and Michael snatched the divorce form. He handed it to John, who began filling it out, humming a tune. It was clear from his attitude that John didn't remember anything he had done to me, not just from that night but all the years prior. He might even start claiming he did nothing wrong. After filling it out, John waved the form at me, smirking. I snatched it, quickly put it in my bag, and took out my phone. I opened the recording app and held it up in front of them.
Emma, you're scary. Gathering evidence for divorce now is too late, you know.
Ignoring Linda's mocking laughter, I confirmed with John. I want no alimony or property division, just don't contact me again.
Sure.
If you do, I'll hire a lawyer and demand alimony.
Yeah.
John responded nonchalantly, laughing throughout. I wondered how someone could be so brazen. Trying to keep my temper in check, I turned to Michael and stated clearly. And Michael, now that our marital ties are severed, our parent-child relationship is over too.
Ah, okay.
They both responded. Well, that's all I needed. We'll likely never meet again, so take care of yourselves. I stopped the recording and decided to leave. Neither John, Michael, nor Linda seemed to grasp the reality of their future. Without anyone stopping me, I went to the office to file the divorce papers. 3 days after filling out and submitting the rest of the divorce papers at the office. While I was packing up with my parents for the move, John called me. Just the other day, I told him not to contact me again, or I'd hire a lawyer and sue for emotional distress. But he must have had a reason to contact me so desperately. However, now that we're divorced, it's no longer my concern. Busy with packing, I decided to ignore the call. But just as I thought John's call had ended, Michael called me next. Both of them reaching out must mean something serious is going on, but it's none of my business. I ignored both calls and continued working, but the constant ringing was too distracting. Reluctantly, I answered when John called again, and immediately, I heard his pitiful voice.
Help me, Emma, I can't stop the calls from the bank and Michael.
With that one sentence, I understood what John and Michael were going through and sighed in exasperation. I answered wearily. I don't know anything about that. It's no longer my concern. John shouted back at me in a voice as loud as he could muster.
You heartless woman!
No matter what he said, it was absurd for him to complain to me given their situation. Honestly, I couldn't care less what happens to them. More importantly, do you remember the promise we made just the other day? I deliberately sighed audibly before reiterating. Though it was already too late since John had contacted me. What promise? As expected, he seemed to have forgotten. I couldn't help but laugh inwardly. The one where I said I'd hire a lawyer and sue for emotional distress if you contacted me.
I never heard such a thing.
Whether you listened or not, I definitely said it, and you responded.
No, I didn't. I wouldn't easily agree to such nonsensical terms.
John was vehemently denying it, but I had anticipated such a claim. That's why I had recorded the conversation. It's recorded, so you can't escape this.
Please, forgive me. If this continues, both Michael and I will be lost.
John's voice was even weaker than when he first called, pleading with me. But considering everything that's happened, there's no way I could forgive him. Absolutely not, I'm going to consult a lawyer now. I flatly rejected him, but John, who only accepts convenient truths, persisted.
Let's get back together, okay?
I bluntly replied to John's absurd suggestion. In your dreams. I was surprised at how cold my own voice sounded. I then hung up and blocked John's number. That should ensure no further contact from John. Feeling relieved, I was about to resume packing when my phone rang again. Wondering what it was now, I checked and saw Michael's name. I had completely forgotten in the heat of the moment with John, but Michael must also be receiving numerous calls from the bank. He seemed to be reaching out to me for help, just like John. I thought about not answering, but decided to enlighten him about society and answered the call.
Mom, please help me. I keep getting these crazy calls from the bank, and Dad won't answer his phone.
His voice was as pitiful as one could imagine. Having to deal with the same issue twice in one day was too much for me. So, I decided to be brief and sent him the recording before he could say anything more. Your father is that kind of person. Also, I've just sent you a recording of something important, so listen to it and understand. With that said, don't contact me again. You and I are strangers now. After hearing what I said, Michael was yelling something on the other end of the phone, but I hung up without listening. Then, just like I did with John, I blocked his number and went back to my packing. Once I finished a phase of the packing, I headed to the law office. I explained the whole situation and decided to sue John, Michael, and of course, Linda for emotional distress. To be honest, considering there's a child between Michael and Linda, I thought about going easy on them. But thinking back to what happened 3 days ago and everything before that, I just couldn't let it go. I hoped this would be a good opportunity for them to learn about the harsh realities of society. So, I didn't hold back and went through with the full claim. As a result, John was demoted and took a pay cut after this incident became known at his company. Apparently, it became so uncomfortable for him there that he resigned voluntarily. I heard from my lawyer that he's now juggling day jobs to pay the alimony. As for Michael and Linda, their schemes failing led to a huge fight. Linda even brought up divorce. But with a child to consider and unable to afford the alimony on her own, she gave up on the idea. Their home is probably as cold as ever now. I couldn't help but laugh, thinking they didn't have to follow in their father's footsteps so closely. Of course, Michael ended up getting fired due to the commotion. Now both he and Linda are working multiple jobs, sweating it out to pay the alimony. As for me, I went back to my parents' house and told them everything. We discussed what I should do next and decided I'd live with them. Together with my parents, we're now renovating the house to make it comfortable for the three of us. Because of this, we're currently staying somewhere temporarily. Since the divorce, I've been freed from all that mess, and thankfully, my work has been recognized, leading to an increase in my income. From now on, I'm going to work even harder and live a happy life. Being with my parents is now the greatest joy of my life.
She's a poor high school dropout from a single-parent home, but she can be useful as a slave.
At a dining table laden with delicious side dishes and fresh fish carpaccio, in front of his parents, Leon said with a laugh. I felt my ears burn with embarrassment at such a terrible introduction. There had been moments in our cohabitation when I questioned Leon's attitude. But I had overlooked them, thinking we might become husband and wife. But to be insulted like this in front of his parents was beyond belief. Before I could worry about what his parents thought, they suddenly burst into laughter. What's this, some kind of prank? I didn't know you could joke like that. They said, looking at Leon casually. What? Confused, Leon stared back at his parents. I swallowed hard, witnessing this interaction. My name is Julie Brown. And I'm 33 this year. I've hopped between various jobs, but currently, I'm working part-time at a restaurant. I wanted to work full-time, but since my mother, a single parent, fell ill a year ago, I've had to balance work with her care. Since I care for her after returning from work, these days are quite exhausting physically. But I'm determined to help the mother who raised me. Despite her insistence on going to a facility, I want to spend as much time as possible. Knowing how I feel, she thanks me every day with a smile. Both my restaurant job and caring for my mother are my passions. If I can be useful to someone, I'll gladly take on any challenge. My mother always taught me, be useful to others, and it will come back to you. This philosophy has ingrained in me, and I've dedicated myself to every job. Before I knew it, I was over 30 and starting to think about marriage. I wasn't initially desperate to get married, but recently my mom kept saying, I'm worried about you when I'm gone. I wanted to find someone nice soon to reassure her. The first thing that came to my mind was a dating app. It seemed popular lately, frequently mentioned in the news. Meeting someone through an app and getting married seems quite normal these days. I was nervous about signing up at first, but it turned out to be quite fun. I was surprised by the sheer number of messages I received daily. However, many seemed to be just for fun, and Leon was probably the first one who seemed seriously into marriage. I'm Leon Miller. Nice to meet you. I first met Leon face-to-face through the app at a certain cafe in New York City. Coincidentally, we lived in the same neighborhood, and he agreed to my suggestion to meet there. When I first met Leon, he struck me as a fine young man with handsome features. He was a year older than me, very friendly and likable. He's a lawyer. A catch by any standard. I wondered why such an eligible bachelor hadn't married yet. Excuse me, but have you ever considered marriage? Yes, but work always took precedence. This time I'm serious about finding a partner, someone sincere like you, Julie. Leon seemed skilled at flattering women. We hit it off talking about his career and our past relationships. Leon definitely seemed to be popular with women. Unlike me with few romantic experiences, Leon seemed to have been popular since his student days. There's something I need to tell you. What is it? I wanted to share my insecurities with someone I might date. I'm actually a high school dropout and currently working part-time in a restaurant due to caring for my mother. I've done various jobs, but if you're okay with someone like me, I'd be happy to keep talking like this. I had never told anyone about my educational background on a first meeting before. But I thought Leon would listen without mocking me. Leon nodded seriously upon hearing her confession. Is that so? You must have faced tough times. But now you're doing admirable work. There's nothing to worry about. Leon's words made me so happy that I was almost in tears. I felt immensely relieved and valued, realizing that Leon didn't mind my social status or education. Since that day, we met several times, and after 3 months, I took the initiative to confess my feelings to Leon. It was my first time and I was quite nervous. But Leon, to me, seemed like the ideal man. Not because of his profession as a lawyer, but his sincere demeanor in conversations. Seeing his serious expression when talking to me and realizing he treated me as an equal always made me happy. I expressed my feelings to Leon, and when he said, "I love you too, Julie," I felt an immense joy. Furthermore, Leon was already thinking about marrying me, so we decided to date with marriage in mind. The future, spending time with Leon, who was now not just a boyfriend but a fiancé, seemed exciting. I now understood why my friends were always so eager to talk about their boyfriends, even when nobody asked. The joy of being with someone you love is irreplaceable. But at that time, I didn't know that. My relationship with Leon would take an unexpected turn. "All right, I'm counting on you for cleaning, laundry, cooking, and taking out the trash. I'm busy working all day, you know." When Leon and I started dating, we decided to move in together quickly, considering our age. We chose an appropriate apartment in New York and agreed to split the rent. Honestly, I wished Leon, who earned much more than me, would contribute a bit more, but I felt it was hard to complain due to my situation. On the first day of us moving in together, I was stunned by his words. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, and taking out the trash. Does that mean I have to do all the housework? I need to take care of my mom at night. Of course, it's obvious. I'm an elite lawyer, and you're just a high school dropout doing part-time work, right? I'm busier and earn more, so it's only natural for you to handle the household. I was struck by a dull shock. To think that Leon, who had once praised me for being admirable despite being a high school dropout, was now belittling me and dumping all the housework on me. His attitude was 180 degrees different from when he had praised me during my confession. My mind was in turmoil. What's going on? Is this the real Leon? Is this some kind of prank? A whirlwind of doubts swirled in my mind, but if it were a joke or prank, it would be in extremely poor taste. That meant Leon's words were serious. No way, could it be? Was Leon this kind of person all along? Pretending to be solid and reliable to lure women in, only to cast them aside once he's got them. I've often heard that many men stop caring once they've caught the fish, but with Leon, it's beyond that. It's like throwing the fish on the ground and abandoning it. All right, I'm off to work. Please take care of what I said earlier. Leon left for work without even considering my point of view. I felt like I was plummeting from the pinnacle of happiness into the depths of despair, engulfed by a dark cloud of anxiety. Living with Leon wasn't just about being burdened with all the housework. He often went out for meals after work, claiming it was for business. And many times his company was other women. I knew this because he brazenly told me, "I'm going out for drinks with a girl tonight." His attitude seemed defiant, as if he had nothing to hide, but I wish he'd consider how it felt to be on the receiving end. Even if Leon loved me, treating me like a slave since moving in together made me doubt his feelings. Often, Leon wouldn't return until late at night after going out. Usually, I get home in the evening, drop my things off, and then head straight to my parents' house. Fortunately, it's just 2 stations away, but juggling a part-time job, all the housework, and caring for my parent, I was exhausted every day. Leon would occasionally leave for meals without a word, leaving the dinner I made to go to waste. And when he returned drunk, looking at the dinner I had prepared, he said,
"What a waste of food! Why did you make this stuff?"
"I thought you were coming home today."
"Huh? I haven't been coming home for days. Can't you figure that out? Do I have to spell everything out for you? This is what I expect from someone who only finished high school."
Despite Leon's lack of communication, he berated me for being a middle school dropout. His words filled me with anger. The reason Leon had never been married must be because he's been deceiving women like this. That's who Leon really is. I was the one who got fooled. But I refuse to be his puppet any longer. How can I get back at Leon? 2 months into living with Leon, I was cleaning his room when I happened to notice his laptop screen open. The messaging app was left open, and a particular message caught my eye. It seemed Leon hadn't read it yet, but there were a lot of notifications. With trepidation, I opened the chat screen.
What's this?
I was shocked by the content of the conversation. Delving deeper into his messages, the more I discovered about Leon, the more I felt a chill run down my spine. I've stumbled upon something big. Alone in the room, trembling with shock and fear, I was glued to Leon's chat screen, taking pictures of it with my smartphone. The next day, Leon invited me to visit his parents' home. I wasn't in the mood, especially after what I had seen, but he had already told his parents we were coming. Feeling it would be rude to cancel now, I decided to go, thinking I would just say hello and then leave. I thought I was dating Leon as my fiancé, but my feelings were complicated. Wondering how to convey my current feelings to Leon and his parents, I headed to Leon's family home.
Hello, nice to meet you.
I'm Julie Brown. Leon always takes good care of me. As soon as I arrived at Leon's house, I greeted. When I saw the faces of Leon's parents, I was utterly surprised. Because their faces looked familiar. Julie Brown. Could it be? Leon's parents seemed about to say something, but Leon quickly exclaimed, "I'm starving," so we all sat down at the dining table for now.
Hey, what are you doing? This isn't the time to be sitting. Hurry up and serve the meal.
What? Leon glared at me as I sat down at the table. His parents were shocked. So was I. Coming to someone else's house and being told to prepare a meal, I didn't know what to do. Of course, if that had been the plan from the start, I would have been prepared, but being suddenly ordered by Leon, I was flustered. "It's okay, we've ordered delivery," Leon's father kindly said, but Leon snorted.
"We shouldn't have bothered ordering this stuff. We could have just had her do it."
At Leon's words, his parents seemed astonished. Eventually, the doorbell rang, and the delivery person brought some delicious food. It turns out it was ordered from well-known department store. As Leon's parents laid out the tasty dishes on the table, they said, "Let's eat." Leon then began to introduce me again.
"She's a poor high school dropout from a single-parent home, but she can be useful as a slave."
At a dining table laden with delicious side dishes and fresh fish carpaccio, in front of his parents, Leon said with a laugh. I felt my ears burn with embarrassment at such a terrible introduction. There had been moments when I questioned Leon's attitude. But I had overlooked them, thinking we might become husband and wife. But to be insulted like this in front of his parents was beyond belief. Before I could worry about what his parents thought, they suddenly burst into laughter. "What's this, some kind of prank? I didn't know you could joke like that," they said, looking at Leon casually. "What?" Confused, Leon stared back at his parents. I swallowed hard, witnessing this interaction. "You enjoy saying things like that, watching how we react, don't you? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Eyes funny. You knew we knew Julie from before, and you set up this weird prank, right?" "What?" Leon looked completely baffled. He clearly had no idea what his parents were talking about. Leon's parents seemed to realize that Leon's belittling words towards me were not a prank but his true feelings, and their expressions turned stern instantly. "You really don't know? You spoke about Julie as if she were a slave, not knowing the truth?" "What do you mean, I don't know? I always speak the truth, don't I?" Needless to say, those words were the last straw. Leon's parents' faces grew even more severe, and they both glared at him. "Julie's mother helped us a lot, you know. Back in Japan." "Wait, in Japan, with Julie's mom?" Leon looked at me, as if asking what was going on. It made sense he didn't know, as I had barely spoken about my past to him. I decided to tell everything about why I knew Leon's parents. You see, I moved to Japan during my high school days. I wanted to explore my potential and work abroad. Of course, my mother opposed it. She said it'd be better after college. But I knew our family was poor and that we couldn't afford my college education, so I went against my mom's wishes and moved to Japan. Leon's eyes widened in surprise as I suddenly talked about living in Japan during high school. My mom eventually agreed and came with me. I studied Japanese hard before moving, but it was still tough in Japan. However, Japan is more tolerant about educational backgrounds, and I managed to find a job. As I hopped between various jobs, I gradually became conversational in Japanese. My mom also learned Japanese on her own, and we lived comfortably.
In Japan, working? There's no way you, a high school dropout, could.
But I did. I even started an IT company with some local friends and caught a big break. About 10 years after moving, I had built up a decent amount of wealth. Enough to buy a brand new house with cash. And 3 years ago, I met your parents. Leon's parents nodded deeply at my words. Leon exclaimed in disbelief, "What?" Leon, you might remember, but your mother and I lived in Japan for a year due to work 3 years ago while you stayed home. We barely spoke Japanese and were struggling until Julie and her mom helped us out. That's right. My mother and I used to host events for American people in Japan on our days off. It was Leon's parents who we met there. They had just arrived in Japan and told us about it, and we often met to teach them Japanese and about life in Japan. Leon's parents were very happy to learn about Japan from my mother and me. We have great memories of having tea and going sightseeing together. So, I was shocked to unexpectedly reunite with them today. They had mentioned having a son, but never gave details. It might seem too coincidental, but such things happen, and now I've come to accept this reality. Mom and Dad knew Julie. No way. You wouldn't think so, right? But it's true, so what can you do? That's why we knew from the start Julie was a wonderful person, and I can't believe how you spoke ill of her. Leon's mom glared at him angrily. Like a frog being stared down by a snake, making Leon let out a squeak of fear. A year ago, my mother's health declined, and we returned home, but I'm still remotely working for the IT company. The staff there trust me a lot. At the restaurant where I work part-time, they value me for speaking Japanese. I'm a high school dropout, but I've always tried hard in everything I could do. Leon's face turned pale. He had always ridiculed me for being a high school dropout, but now he was shocked to learn that I was successful.
Why didn't you tell me something so important? You're rich, huh? Then let's get married after all. I won't make fun of you anymore, okay?
Leon said with a bright voice, suddenly being upfront. He had changed his mind after knowing about my substantial assets. But I'm not fooled by Leon's superficial words. What are you talking about? I have no intention of marrying you. Do you know how hard it was for me when you deceived me and then showed your true colors after we started living together? And speaking of deception, you've committed fraud using your position as a lawyer, haven't you? Fraud? What are you talking about? Leon's demeanor changed drastically when he realized I had no intention of marrying him. He was visibly shaken at the mention of fraud. I pressed on. I accidentally saw it on your computer yesterday. There were numerous complaints addressed to you. I'm sorry I looked without permission, but the angry words from your clients who were charged fraudulent fees by you were very justified. I have proof. I showed Leon the photos I had taken of his computer screen the day before. Leon's face contorted, and his parents' faces grew even more stern. You claim to be an elite, yet you deceived people and committed fraud. That's just the lowest. You probably ran through your money with your nightlife and are now drowning in debt, right? The moment you found out I have assets, you tried to take my money too. Truly despicable. Your parents are such respectable people, it's a shame. Please consider our engagement null and void. I glared at Leon, delivering these final words. Leon was crestfallen, muttering, "No way." Leon's parents seemed to agree with my decision, angrily shouting at Leon, "You need to go to the police right now."
Go to the police? No way. What are you saying? You deceived important clients, hurt Julie, and think you can be happy alone? What a foolish son you are. We don't need a son like you anymore. Go to the police right now.
Leon's father's roar echoed through the house. Stunned, Leon then let out a scream as if he had forgotten his voice and rushed out of the house.
I'm so sorry for our foolish son. What can we do to apologize?
Leon's mother said, holding my hands in remorse.
No, please, don't apologize. It's also my fault for being deluded while in a feverish state. But thanks to meeting Leon, I'm really happy to see you two again.
Thank you. Leon's parents looked down. We then reminisced about our time in Japan, and they expressed concern for my mother's health. They truly are good people. I may have lost a fiancé, but in return, I've gained a wonderful connection, which is a small consolation. Leon, as promised, turned himself in to the police and is currently being questioned. I suspect he was spending money on a woman. He would declare I'm going out for drinks with a lady without any guilt and leave at night. Leon, running out of money, deceived clients with exorbitant fees, trying to escape his debts. Then, he even targeted my assets. He's hopeless. Even if he comes out of police custody, the incident is already known around, and he will likely lose his job. According to his parents, Leon was always getting into fights with friends and was often called out by teachers in elementary and middle school. He even had police trouble due to these fights. It's a mystery how such parents could have a son like Leon, but he's only reaping what he sowed. Leon's parents have decided not to let him back into their home. I also believe that Leon should not be a burden to his parents. He has lost his job and fiancé, and must be in the depths of despair now, but there's no room for sympathy. He should at least pay off his debts on his own. Meanwhile, I continue to stay in touch with Leon's parents. They are planning to visit my family home soon. They want to meet my mother. Though I lost my fiancé, I am happy to have formed such a precious bond. Life, with both work and caregiving, has its challenges, but I want to cherish those who care for me and continue to live positively. My name is Emily. I'm a 30-year-old who married my same-age colleague, Ethan. I work for a multinational company, but currently, I'm on maternity leave. We were thrilled to find out I was pregnant shortly after our marriage. Ethan was longing for a child, so he was overjoyed when I broke the news. Both our families celebrated the new life growing inside me. So, it was unbelievable. Cracks began to appear in our marriage with Ethan after I got pregnant. I never imagined that minor issues would gradually widen into irreparable rifts.
Emily, stop lazing around and do some housework. Useless. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can slack off, brainless.
Don't say that. I'm feeling a bit sick. I made dinner, right?
You just threw together some veggies and meat, right? That's lazy cooking. I wanted hamburgers today, didn't I? Feeding me this trash.
Ethan threw away the pot of tofu I made without even tasting it. He never asked for hamburgers. It was a totally unjust accusation.
I'm going to the diner. You can eat the trash in the sink. Wait. Don't you feel anything throwing away food someone made with love? Aren't you an adult?
When I snapped back, Ethan clicked his tongue while looking at my swollen belly.
Shut up. Keep nagging and I'll silence you with my fist. How can you say that? There's a baby in here. Don't even joke about that.
Yelling in frustration and sadness, Ethan left the kitchen without a glance back, leaving a hurtful remark.
It's not like I wanted this kid anyway. Whatever happens to it, I don't care. Your fetus is trash. Just like that garbage pot of tofu.
That's awful. The baby did nothing wrong. Tears welled up as I looked down, but Ethan left through the front door without a care. Why did it turn out like this? Rather than being a blessing, the child became a nuisance to Ethan. Of course, the baby is not at fault. It's all Ethan's selfish whims. A child isn't a toy. You can't always get what you wish for. As I stroked my growing belly, I remembered the day I found out about this 3-month pregnancy.
Ethan, I went to the OBGYN today. It's been 3 months. Really? Good job, Emily. We've been waiting for this child. It's a boy, right?
We decided to have only one child since we both work. Ethan was strangely insistent on having a son even before I got pregnant. I want to play outside and play games with my son. So it has to be a boy. It felt like Ethan was mistaking a child for his personal toy. Pregnancy isn't certain. Whether it's a boy or a girl, I'll be happy as long as they're healthy.
Hey! Tell me the gender of the kid. I only want a boy.
It'll be a while before we know if it's a boy or a girl. But don't say you only want a boy. If it's a girl, I don't want it. I hate sassy, cunning little girls. Just you and my sister are enough. Boys are the way to go. Ethan has an older sister, Susan. She's a wise and kind ideal sister-in-law. Ethan feels inferior to the successful Susan. Everyone praises her. A 35-year-old spinster. If I have a son, I can brag to her.
Susan is a wonderful sister-in-law. You're being awful. And you don't have kids just to brag, right?
Stop nagging. Emily, make sure it's a boy. If it's a girl, I won't bother with it.
How can you say that? It's our child either way. It's our duty to cherish them.
Kids can't choose their parents, but parents can choose their kids. Unwanted children are just trash. I always thought Ethan was a strong-willed man, but his true nature showed after we got married and I became pregnant. Thinking about the future of my unborn child makes me feel gloomy. Then, a little while later, we found out it was a girl. Ethan began to despise me and our unborn daughter as if he had drawn a bad lottery ticket.
Carrying trash in your womb. Don't come into my sight. An eyesore of a trash woman. Stop it, Ethan. This child isn't trash. No parent should speak like that.
Parent? Who's that? I don't need the trash in your womb. I'd like to sell it on a flea market app.
That's awful. You'd only selfishly love even if the child were a boy.
Our daughter was growing well in my womb. As I entered the stable period of pregnancy, Ethan never longed for our daughter. It's heartbreaking that our daughter is already disliked by her father before she's even born. What should I do now? I couldn't talk to anyone but finally confided in Ethan's sister, Susan. Susan sighed knowing Ethan's behavior. Ethan has been like this since he was a kid. Turns worst when he doesn't get what he wants. I can't believe he's treating you and the baby like this, Emily. Susan, I can bear it, but it's too sad for my unborn child. Just thinking about what's going to happen makes me anxious. I'm sorry for the pain. I'm happy to have a niece. My parents feel the same. By the way, have you decided on a name? Yes, her name will be Lily. I chose it looking at a baby name book because it sounded cute. Lily, what a nice name. If she's Emily's daughter, she's bound to be adorable. I can't wait to meet my niece. Thank you, Susan. It makes me happy to hear you say that. I hope Lily grows up to be smart and kind, just like you. You're too kind. And don't worry, Ethan will flip once Lily is born. He can't resist a cute daughter. I hope so. Ethan will change once he actually sees the baby, right? Susan's encouragement gave me a glimmer of hope. Perhaps Ethan's heart will change once Lily is born. But my hope crumbled when Ethan dropped a bombshell. Emily, get back to work soon after the kid is born. I quit my job.
What? You're quitting your job right before our child is born? Why didn't you discuss this with me?
I don't need to consult you. We'll live off your savings from now on.
Don't joke. That money is for Lily's education. How can you quit your job with a wife in her final month of pregnancy? Shut up. It's my life, I can do what I want. Don't walk around with that big belly, it's annoying.
As Lily's birth approached, Ethan and I only fought. He wouldn't tell me, Susan, or even his parents why he quit his job.
Where does Ethan go every day? He says he's looking for a job, but he's not wearing a suit.
Ethan started spending less time at home. Being far from my parents, I was looked after by Susan and my in-laws until Lily was born. Lily was a healthy baby girl. My in-laws were thrilled with their first grandchild. Susan also cared for me after giving birth.
I'm glad both mother and child are healthy. You did great, Emily. Lily is really cute. Thank you, Susan. I'm so grateful to your parents. My parents are over the moon with Lily. But I'm so sorry about Ethan. I feel ashamed as a sister for him abandoning you during your first birth.
Ultimately, Ethan never visited his daughter at the maternity clinic. So when I returned home with Lily, we were just in his way.
Hey, shut that brat up. Her crying is annoying.
Babies cry.
It's normal for them to cry at night. There, Lily. Take her outside if she's disturbing. I'm going to sleep. If she cries again, you'll regret it.
Ethan became furious whenever he heard Lily crying. He didn't help with childcare, work, or housework, leaving everything to me. I was exhausted.
Lily's 1-month checkup is coming up. I'll do my best for you, Lily.
Life was tough, but at the 1-month checkup, Lily was declared healthy. Relieved, I returned home, but the front door wouldn't open no matter how much I tried the key.
What's this? Is the key different?
As I puzzled, Ethan's mocking laughter came from inside the house.
I changed the locks because of the baby's night cries.
Sleep outside with the kid.
You're kidding, right? You'd go this far? You and the brat are just like trash. Become homeless for all I care.
After enduring so much from pregnancy to now, my anger finally exploded. All right, don't complain wherever we sleep. Holding back my urge to yell, I replied in a deliberately calm and bright tone, as if speaking to someone behind me. Susan, did you hear? Ethan told me and Lily to go be homeless and sleep outside. When I mentioned his sister's name, Ethan's voice from behind the door sounded clearly panicked.
What? Susan's there with you?
Yeah, Ethan hasn't helped at all with the baby, so I was exhausted. Susan kindly stayed with me. Susan, who had been quietly observing, stepped back and furiously pounded on the door. Susan was usually gentle, but now she seemed even angrier than me.
Get out, Ethan. You're the one who needs to leave, you jerk. Open the door right now and apologize to Emily and Lily.
Ethan seemed cowed by her fury, but stubbornly refused to open the door. Soon, a young woman's sweet voice could be heard from inside. What's up, Ethan? It's noisy outside. I woke up because of the noise. I recognized the woman's voice. Katie, she was the new girl who joined the company right before I went on maternity leave. It's clear now. You were cheating on me while I was pregnant?
Ethan, how low can you go? Bringing another woman home while Emily is out for Lily's checkup.
As Susan and I confronted him at the door, Ethan, perhaps defiant, laughed triumphantly.
Shut up with your yapping. Katie is cute and comes from a wealthy family. I'm divorcing Emily and marrying Katie, right, Katie?
Yes. Ethan said he loves Katie the most and that I'll have a boy. Did you hear that? I'm going to remarry Katie and build a happy family. Her family is rich. Emily, I'll graciously give you alimony and child support. Ethan, my dad thinks you are a bachelor, so I want to wear a wedding dress soon. Susan and I fell silent in the face of Ethan and Katie's delusional future. Our accumulated anger turned to disbelief, and even yelling seemed pointless. If you've thought this far, so be it, I'll agree to the divorce. Of course, I'll demand alimony from Ethan and Katie. Ethan, just so you know, Mom and Dad are furious with your behavior. They'll disown you when they find out about this.
Susan, I don't care if Dad and Mom disown me. Just get lost with Emily and her brat.
Don't regret it, Ethan. Let's go, Emily. Stay at my place. Lily, let's go to your aunt's house. Thank you, Susan. Ethan, don't complain about the consequences. After warning Ethan, I took Lily and went to stay at Susan's place. Susan apologized as she watched Lily sleeping.
I'm so sorry, Emily. This is not what I wanted. Our parents are so ashamed. I'm sorry. Susan, please don't apologize. I actually feel relieved. It's not your fault or your parents'.
It wasn't Susan's or her parents' fault, Ethan was to blame.
I'll contact my family too. Sorry for the trouble, Susan. Nonsense. It's going to be tough, so stay with us. I'd be happy to have you and Lily. Rest easy today. Thank you so much, Susan. I'll probably be busy tomorrow.
The next day, while putting Lily to sleep at Susan's, Ethan called. Just as expected, he's panicking. I let the phone ring without answering, and it kept ringing incessantly. He seemed really panicked. After ignoring him for a while, I decided to take the call.
What do you want?
Don't call, Lily might wake up.
Emily! You set me and Katie up. You secretly did an affair investigation and snitched to Katie's parents.
What? Normally, you keep affair investigations secret.
But I bet Katie's parents were shocked to discover their daughter was involved with a married man. You shouldn't have interfered. Because of you, Katie's parents disowned her. Her dad came yelling at me yesterday.
Oh dear, that's tough. You were planning to ingratiate yourself with Katie's wealthy family for an easy life. Must be tough to be disliked by her father.
So, it's all your fault for telling Katie's parents. Now she's penniless and disowned. I can't use her family's money.
Well, if you're dating a man with a pregnant wife, any parent would be angry. If you love Katie the most, why don't you remarry her, even if you're both penniless?
Don't joke. I was supposed to live luxuriously with Katie's family wealth. You ruined my happiness.
I don't care about that. As for the divorce, I'll communicate through a lawyer. I'll demand alimony for your affair and abandoning the family. When I mentioned the estimated total of alimony and child support, Ethan begged me desperately.
Emily, I'll break up with Katie. Let's start over as a couple, live happily together.
Live happily together? Which face of yours is saying that? There's no way I'm getting back with you. Lily and I will live our lives. You will be happy with your beloved Katie.
Please forgive me. Katie is so dumb she even got fired. I can't be with her, help me.
Then you're a perfect match. A dumb man and woman. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Bye. Ignoring Ethan's excuses, I hung up. Susan, who had been watching, sighed deeply.
Emily, stay here until the divorce is finalized and things settle down. Dad and Mom are disowning Ethan. I'm thinking of cutting ties too. Susan, thank you for introducing me to the investigation agency and letting us stay at your place. My parents are a bit relieved too. I'm glad I had a friend at the investigation agency. Emily, if Ethan comes back begging for reconciliation, I'll send him away. Thank you for everything, really. I owe you so much, Susan.
I continued preparing for the divorce with my lawyer. Susan and my in-laws helped with taking care of Lily. Ethan came around a few times, but Susan turned him away.
We have evidence of Ethan's affair with Katie, his malicious abandonment, and unilateral neglect of family life. The investigation agency friend was appalled. This means a significant amount of alimony for the wife. It's a wise decision to divorce Ethan for Lily's sake. Katie's parents promised to make their daughter pay for her sins. She'll have to pay the alimony herself. Ethan sought help from our parents, but they refused. Dad and Mom can't forgive him this time.
I'll demand child support from Ethan, and he'll have to pay it himself. After the lawyer intervened, the divorce went through without a hitch. There was a lot of fuss over property division, but Ethan ended up paying a large amount in alimony due to his past actions.
Katie was disowned and kicked out by her parents, so we demanded appropriate alimony from her too. She left Ethan for another man, it seems.
I wonder how she'll pay. Leaving Ethan is the right choice, though. Katie was actually two-timing Ethan. It was just a fling for her, and she never intended to marry him. I hate to say it, but she seems quite cunning.
At least smarter than Ethan. Played by a 23-year-old girl and then dumped. Ethan really is beyond help. But be careful, Emily. Ethan can be surprisingly vindictive. He might do something to you and Lily out of spite. He keeps contacting me for reconciliation even after the divorce. Seems like he's really struggling financially. He's been asking me for money too. I blocked his calls and messages. Such a hassle. As Susan said, Ethan was a foolish yet vengeful man. Despite ignoring the demands for alimony and child support, he kept begging for reconciliation. Even Katie took out loans to pay her alimony, but Ethan wants to reconcile because he can't pay. He's a useless man without any pride. As much as I hate to speak ill of him since he's Lily's biological father, Ethan's pathetic behavior was persistent and increasingly aggressive. I'm the victim here, Emily. You ruined my life. You should be paying me alimony. Be prepared for my revenge. Ethan was screaming resentfully in front of Susan's house. It was a nuisance to the neighbors, so Susan, her parents, and I discussed how to handle it. I'm worried about Lily. He seems capable of putting her in danger. We should be cautious when going out. It's unbelievable he's getting upset without paying alimony. The thought of being subjected to Ethan's irrational resentment was frightening. Susan's parents came up with safety measures for Lily and me. After making these plans, I went shopping nearby with Lily, covering for Susan who was working from home. Lily, let's head back quickly after shopping. There might be scary people. After a quick shopping trip, as I was pushing Lily's stroller back home, a disheveled man suddenly appeared. If you care about this brat's life, forget all the money you owe me. Ethan! Give Lily back! Someone help! My daughter is being kidnapped by a suspicious person. If you reconcile and work for me, I'll return the kid. Hurry up and obey. Lily, frightened by Ethan's loud screaming, started to cry. See, such a brat can be easily dealt with. Obey my orders. Withdraw the divorce. No way! Let Lily go! You're not a husband or a father, just trash. Ethan seemed desperate as I refused to comply. Passers-by, sensing something was wrong, discussed whether to call the police. The police will see I'm not at fault. I'll tell them how my wife ruined my life for no reason. You're so delusional. Do you really think that excuse will work? This is your last chance. Give Lily back. Shut up. I'll take this brat and use her as a hostage. Ethan tried to flee, holding Lily roughly, but his efforts were futile. Officer, over here! My ex-husband is trying to forcibly take my daughter. Several police officers intervened, and Ethan was arrested for attempted kidnapping. Lily wasn't hurt, and she stopped crying when I held her. Thank you. My ex-husband has been vengefully harassing us. No. We're still husband and wife. That was just a marital spat. This is overblown. When will you stop calling us husband and wife? It's over. The police are aware of that. You! Did you set me up with the police? Don't say such horrible things. Your parents advised talking to the police because of the danger. They were concerned for me and Lily. How low can you be? I'm not at fault. I just came to see my daughter. Witnesses to Ethan's excuses shook their heads in denial. The police grimaced at his transparent lies. Great father, using his daughter as a shield. And even his excuses are pathetic. Shut up. Being disowned and dumped by Katie, it's all your fault. Even involving the police. Ethan, displaying an incredibly disgraceful behavior, was unflinchingly detained and taken away by the police. Even in the patrol car, Ethan continued to shout, causing the police a great deal of trouble. I'm relieved Lily doesn't understand yet. With his attitude, he's causing trouble for the police too. It was good we consulted them. Susan rushed over, and we were briefly interviewed by the police, but it ended quickly. Susan was relieved Lily was safe. Lily, I'm so glad you're okay. Ethan, I won't forgive him this time. I'm cutting all ties, he's no longer my brother. I hope the police give him a hard time. I also let my guard down, thinking we'd be safe because it's our neighborhood. Thankfully, the police were keeping watch, so everything turned out okay.
Ethan's parents must be shocked their disowned son was now in police custody.
In the police station, Ethan keeps insisting he's not at fault, despite the evidence. Everything Ethan has done is recorded. It's clear he's at fault for the divorce. He always had a strong sense of victimhood. I remember Ethan complaining before that his parents favored you, Susan. Is that true? Our parents never played favorites. Ethan just always wanted to be special and hated losing but never put in the effort.
I see.
He was a bit childish at work too. I thought it was charming at first, but he started to pretend to be more mature, hoping a gentle person like you would change him, but his nature didn't change. He was oddly fixated on having a boy to brag about and play with. Now I realize he had no friends. With his personality, he wasn't the type to play well with others.
While chatting and comforting Lily, we got a call from the police. They issued a restraining order against Ethan for Lily and me.
Violating a restraining order is a clear crime. Ethan seems to have learned a little. He still won't pay alimony or child support, though. He should take responsibility for what he's sown. If he doesn't pay, it'll be subject to enforcement, right?
Yes.
He'll likely be an enforcement target soon.
After my maternity leave, I returned to my job at the multinational company. I'm happy I can still be close with you after the divorce.
Me too.
I'm relieved we can talk like before. My parents are grateful too. Having you look after Lily is a big help. It lets me work with peace of mind. To give me a break, our parents suggested Susan and I grab coffee together. Lily is adored by my in-laws. As we were chatting about work and other updates, a familiar female voice approached us.
It's Emily, right? Long time no see. How have you been?
To my surprise, there was Katie, Ethan's former affair partner, holding hands with another man. The nerve of her to casually greet me.
Hello. Thanks for everything back then. After that, I did some reflecting. I've been working and paying back the money. I'm dating this guy I met at work now.
Really?
Hard to keep track of how many boyfriends you've had.
As Katie and her current boyfriend were leaving, she suddenly added.
Oh yeah, about Ethan. I was walking in the night streets for work, and he started following me around. Super clingy and creepy, so I called the cops.
Then Katie and her flashy boyfriend happily left. Susan and I exchanged a look and chuckled wryly.
A 23-year-old former mistress creeped out and calling the cops on him. I can't forgive him, but Katie kind of delivered the final blow to Ethan. Getting the police involved again.
Ethan, who hasn't paid alimony or child support, became a target for enforcement. He's struggling while juggling multiple part-time jobs to make the payments. Rumor has it that Ethan caused a scene at the place where Katie works. Katie ended up breaking up with her boyfriend after he found out about her involvement with Ethan.
Ethan's causing police trouble for the third time, and Katie's broken up but pregnant. Ethan might be hopeless, but Katie will probably survive cunningly.
Ethan lost his part-time jobs and became even more destitute. I plan to relentlessly pressure him to pay the alimony he owes, as it's entirely his own doing. My name is Susan Thompson. I'm a lawyer, employed, but I've followed a proper path and landed a legitimate job. I've been married for about 13 years. My husband was previously engaged and has a daughter, Molly, from that relationship. We remarried, but now that she's in her teenage years, she's increasingly ignoring me. I've always believed that she would understand someday, so I've worked hard both at my job and as a mother. Time passed, and when she brought home her fiancé, Simon.
I won't involve myself with you, you're a stranger to me.
He said something shocking. To my dismay, both my husband and daughter agreed, telling me to leave the room and the house, claiming I'm not a real family member. Despite all my efforts, I was speechless at their unexpected treatment. It takes me back 13 years.
I want you to become my daughter's mother.
My husband had proposed to me. Back then, I had no experience with marriage. Just like my mother lovingly disciplined me, I tried to teach my daughter, Molly, the difference between right and wrong.
If you stay out this late, it's not good. Who do you think you are? Pretending to be my mom? You're not my mom, so stop acting like it. You're just a housekeeper. Just clean and cook for us. How can you say such things to a parent? That's because you're not my parent.
She retorted like that. I cooked for her, and she would frown at the table saying, "What's this?"
It's meatloaf.
I'd respond, thinking it's a dish young people would like. What? Can't you make anything else? It's like you only know one recipe.
That's not true. Yesterday, I made chicken, and the day before that, fish.
I wasn't in the mood for meatloaf today. She would leave and then come back with a burger. Meatloaf or a hamburger, aren't they similar? I thought so, but couldn't say anything. Yet, she always wanted more pocket money than usual. Hey, I need some money.
I gave you some at the beginning of the month.
What?
That's not enough. My friends get way more.
I get so little.
I can't even hang out with my friends. If I get left out, it's all your fault. You're in middle school. I can't give you that much. I've discussed this with your dad.
Ugh, always bringing up dad. A real mom would give me money on the sly. You're useless. Fine, give me money for textbooks then.
Textbooks? How much?
About $50.
Well, I guess that can't be helped.
I gave her the money, but it seemed she never bought the textbooks. This continued, and when I talked to my husband, he just said, "Molly's going through a rebellious phase. It can't be helped." I was upset with Molly, but even more so with my husband's attitude. Time passed, and after Molly graduated from college, my husband suddenly wanted to rebuild our house.
What? We don't have that kind of money.
We'll get a loan.
A loan? We can't work for another 10 years. We'll just be left with a loan.
If we don't, Molly will get married and leave.
That's natural, isn't it?
No, it means she'll leave the house. I don't want to let go of Molly. We need a nice house for that. If we have a grand house, any man she might find will want to live here.
I don't think so.
No, it's settled. You think it's okay to marry her off because she's not your real daughter. I absolutely disagree. We need to rebuild this house to keep Molly here.
What about the remaining loan?
If Molly gets married, the young couple can take it over. If they live here, they'll pay for it.
Isn't that unfair?
As long as we're working, we'll pay it. No problem there.
But we can't keep our current salary forever.
Enough. I've decided. Don't argue. This is not a discussion. It's decided. So, we ended up rebuilding the house, and Molly was thrilled when she heard about it.
Really, Dad?
Yes, really. I can't let a cute daughter like you live in such a shabby house. That's why we're building a new one.
But there's a loan. We can't work forever. You'll end up with the loan.
What? Dad, she's being annoying. She's trying to ruin my dream. See, Molly's fine with it. You don't need to say anything. You're making a fuss when my daughter is happy. This marriage was a mistake.
How can you say that?
In the end, they didn't care about my opposition, built the house, and soon after, Molly brought her fiancé home. And now, I'm being ousted as an unwanted person. Hey, how long are you planning to sit there? You're not her mom, so just leave already. Exactly. How slow can you be? Just go. Hearing them again, I snapped back to reality. Yes, right. I muttered, getting up to gather my things in the bedroom. Alone in the bedroom, packing my bags, tears started flowing. From the living room, I could hear the three of them chatting happily. Oh, so Simon is a lawyer, and he owns such a big office. That's impressive. Molly, you've caught yourself as an amazing man. Dad, please. Caught is such a harsh word. My apologies. It seemed my husband was reassured just knowing that Molly's fiancé was a lawyer. Indeed, a young lawyer like him would likely keep working and be able to pay off the house loan. And as a business owner, he must be earning far more than me, a mere employed lawyer. I see, so that's how it is, I thought to myself. Despite understanding, the pain of all my past efforts being shattered by the appearance of this fiancé was unbearable, and I struggled to pack my bags. Eventually, I managed to stuff my personal belongings into a suitcase and went back to the living room. I will leave now. What, you're still here? Don't bother announcing it. Just go. Simon might get upset. I informed them I'd return later for the rest of my things, and left the house. From the living room, I could hear my husband and daughter's cheerful voices. Even though she's a lawyer too, she's just employed. She's no match for Simon. Now that she's gone, the house feels so much cleaner. Their words pierced my back as I hurried out the door. Suddenly homeless, I stayed in a hotel near my workplace before finding a new place to live. My new home felt empty, but it was far better than being with them. All the effort for such people. I feel sorry for myself, I thought. From now on, I will use my time and money for myself. With this mindset, I began to change my work and daily life. A month passed. I had gotten used to living alone. My husband contacted me. Perhaps it was about divorce. After all, we hadn't contacted a lawyer to start divorce process yet, so it was inevitable. But I hesitated to bring it up myself, so we had been separated for a month. However, the phone call was about something entirely different.
Hey, the house loan hasn't been paid.
To my surprise, my husband told me about the mortgage on our house, even though we live separately.
That's because you haven't deposited money into the account. I did my part. Haven't you paid?
Of course, I haven't.
Why not?
I don't live in that house anymore. Why should I pay the loan?
We agreed to pay it together when we bought the house.
That was if I lived there. Why would I pay for a loan on a house I don't live in?
We're still married, so you should pay.
You and Molly told me to leave. I left. I won't pay the loan anymore.
We said leave, but we're not divorced.
We might not be divorced yet, but we're separated. I can't be with you after what you said.
Even so, we're still married. You have an obligation to pay.
Unfortunately, you're the primary debtor of that house. And since I don't live there, I have no obligation to pay.
Primary debtor?
Yes, you're the owner and you live there. You should pay.
Ugh.
You have a lawyer, Molly's fiancé. Ask him if I'm wrong.
But we decided to buy the house together.
I opposed buying it. I said we couldn't afford the loan. But you insisted.
What an unreasonable person. Won't you sacrifice for your family?
For a family that loves me, yes. But you don't consider me family. Otherwise, you wouldn't have said those things. Besides, the young couple will eventually pay, right? Let them start now. He's a capable lawyer who runs his own firm. He must have the money. If he can pay, that is it.
Of course, he can pay. He's a far more successful lawyer than you ever were. He earns way more than you could ever imagine.
Well, that's good for you then. I just hope it doesn't hurt too much.
What do you mean by that?
You'll understand in time. Annoyed, he ended the call with, "What an insufferable woman." He had apparently assumed that Molly and her fiancé would marry soon and take over the loan. But even after 6 months, there was no news of their wedding. They were living together at his house, seemingly without contributing to household expenses or bills, essentially freeloading. Occasionally, he would call me, confused about their activities, as they would leave and return without explaining what they were doing. But such a situation couldn't last forever. 6 months later, he called me again, this time sounding desperate.
Those two still aren't getting married.
I see.
They live together.
I heard that the other day.
Oh, that's right. They live together, but they don't contribute to the expenses at all.
That's what you were complaining about the other day. If you want your living expenses to be included, you can just say so.
Yeah, I guess so.
You should just ask them to chip in.
Yeah, well, I've been using my savings to cover everything. If it weren't for the loan, it would have been manageable, but paying the full loan amount is tough.
Understandable.
Still, I was able to get by as long as I got paid. I was barely able to get by, but...
So what's the problem? Well, the company I worked for, went bankrupt. Oh, you knew. When it's in the news so much, it's hard not to know about it. His company had been involved in a fraud scandal, causing massive losses to their clients. The employees, unaware of the situation, were left unpaid and in chaos. So now, I can't even afford the living expenses. Maybe you should talk to Molly about it. I did. I told her everything, the company's bankruptcy, my dwindling savings, all of it. So what's the issue? When I asked them to contribute to the living expenses, they said they couldn't. I can't force them if they say they can't. Really? Molly might not be able to, but what about her boyfriend? He's a successful lawyer, isn't he? Apparently, Molly's been giving him some money because his business is struggling too. So neither of them can help with the expenses.
Did you talk to her boyfriend directly?
Yes, I did. Told him it's unreasonable not to pay anything for living together. Then Simon started yelling. He said since Molly wanted to live together, I should ask her for money, not him. And when he found out his business wasn't doing well, he got even more upset, saying it's unfair to ask him to pay under these circumstances. He even threatened to leave if I insisted on payment, and Molly, crying, tried to stop him. They ended up deciding to move out together. So now, I'm trying to manage on my own.
Can you manage?
No, I'm struggling to find work at my age. I see.
I'm in trouble.
So?
But I still believe this is just temporary.
In what way?
Simon is a lawyer. If he gets clients, everything will be fine. The problem is just the lack of clients. I'm sure it'll pick up soon.
You still believe that?
Of course. That's why I'm calling you, despite the embarrassment. Can you lend me some money? I'm sure I'll be able to pay you back once things improve.
I can't make such an impossible promise.
But if Simon's law firm succeeds...
That's not going to happen.
Why would you say that?
Because he's not a lawyer.
What? How can you say that?
What makes you believe he is a lawyer?
Well, he said he's a lawyer, so he must be one, right?
That's naive. Look. Search his name on this website. If it's listed, he's genuine, but I assure you, his name won't be there.
No way.
It's true.
But he showed me the certificate.
He showed you just a picture, right? It could be replicated. Whether he has one or not means nothing.
So, I've been deceived?
Yes, he's a fake, as far as my investigation goes.
That's absurd. Then who is he?
By the way, do you have the house's deed?
Of course I do. Why wouldn't I?
You might want to check. Things you think are secure can sometimes disappear, I suggested. Panicking, he seemed to rummage through his drawers.
It's not here. Did you take it?
I wouldn't do such a thing.
Then who would? Simon?
Exactly.
Why would he do this?
He might be a con artist.
A con artist?
I thought it was strange for a fellow lawyer to insist on my leaving first. That's not normal.
But you're a stranger.
A real lawyer wouldn't say that. He started acting up as soon as he heard I was a lawyer. Everything made sense after that.
What do you mean?
If he's pretending to be a lawyer, a real one like me would be a nuisance.
Because you'd figure it out?
Exactly. He probably can't even provide a registration number. A lawyer would be able to say it off the top of their head. Only a first-year novice wouldn't know their number.
I'll ask him when he gets back.
You think he's coming back? How naive.
He always comes back.
By now, he's probably on the run.
Why do you think that?
Search the house. Look inside electrical outlets, vases, behind paintings. If he's a con artist, you might find hidden bugs.
That's ridiculous.
Just wait, he said before apparently searching the house. He found something unexpected in an electrical outlet. That's probably a bug. If he's been listening in, he knows you're onto him and won't be coming back.
What about the house?
It's probably already sold. You should check.
But I own it. He can't just sell it.
He's a con artist. He knows how to sell it.
That's insane. I've been paying the loan.
If it's sold, the money goes to him, and you're left with the loan.
Did you know about this? Are you in on it?
Of course not. This is just my speculation. But finding a bug makes it likely.
Why didn't you tell me earlier?
What good would it have done? You trusted him. You would have just insulted me. Besides, I'm just a stranger, right? Why would I go out of my way to help someone who told me to leave?
That's ridiculous. Sure, I might not have listened to you before, but you could have said something.
No one's going to tell you anything when they know they'll just be yelled at and belittled. Besides, why should I make an effort for someone who told me to leave?
Is there really nothing that can be done? Can't we somehow get the house back?
The only option is to go to the police. But without knowing who Simon sold it to, there's no way to stop it. Even then, if it's been cleverly sold, the police might not even take your word for it.
No way.
Shocked, my husband kept repeating, "That's too much." About a month later, they received an eviction notice because their house had been sold.
Help me.
Oh, what happened?
I've been told to vacate.
So it was sold.
You're a lawyer, can't you do something?
I'm just an employee. If you're insistent, you could ask my firm, but we're quite expensive. We mainly take on corporate cases.
Don't say that.
Without knowing who the other party is, there's not much I can do. If Simon were here and you could make him compensate, then maybe. But a lawyer can't do much without knowing the perpetrator.
Don't say that. It's our house.
Actually, it's not. You bought that house without me. It's not mine. Besides, I don't live there.
Why are you so cold? We're family.
You and Molly made me cold by kicking me out. I've accepted that we're strangers now.
That's just what you think. I never meant it to go that far. I just thought that since Simon said he was a lawyer.
You thought with Simon around, even if I wasn't there, the house loan would get paid. And since Molly didn't like me, her mood would improve if I left, right?
That's...
Did you really think I wouldn't understand that?
It's not like that. I was just thinking of Molly at that time. You're important to me, really.
Lies. I know you think Molly is the most important. No matter what you say now, my feelings won't change.
Please, help me. You're the only one I can turn to.
Unfortunately, I have no intention of helping. Besides, can you even afford the lawyer fees? It's not like they're cheap.
But family rates. Or you could handle it personally, then it wouldn't be an issue.
No. Why should I do anything for you? Consult another lawyer.
What are we supposed to do then?
Oh right, That reminds me, let's finalize our divorce.
Divorce?
Yes, we're strangers according to you. Plus, I'm just a fake mother. There's no need for us to stay married.
That's crazy. I'm suffering here.
That's your own doing. You underestimated women, and now you're paying the price. I'll send you the divorce papers. If you don't agree with them, I'll take legal action. And if you refuse to divorce, I'll claim alimony. Consider that.
Why alimony?
Because you ridiculed and expelled me while we were married. It's compensation for the mental anguish. And I'll also claim my share of the assets we accumulated together. Even if the house was scammed away, that's on you, so I'll claim half of its value. Think it over.
That's ridiculous.
Utterly defeated, he fell into despair. Serves you right. Eventually, it was confirmed by the police that Simon was a fraudster, but the house was never recovered. My ex-husband and Molly had to leave, with only the loan remaining. My ex-husband asked Molly to pay half of it. However, Molly, who is selfish by nature, yelled at her ex-husband, saying, "Why do I have to pay the loan when I don't even have a house?"
You were also happy to have a new house, weren't you?
I was happy, but I didn't think it would turn out like this.
It was your decision, so you should pay for it.
She moved out on her own, cutting ties with him. Despite his efforts, my ex-husband couldn't find a job and resorted to multiple jobs, but it was still not enough.
Since I'm living alone anyway, maybe I should move somewhere cheaper.
Resigned to his fate, he moved into a rundown one-room apartment. To make ends meet, he started working multiple part-time jobs, which took a toll on his health. Additionally, because he didn't sign the divorce papers I sent, he had to pay alimony and property settlement, forcing him to borrow from consumer finance companies. As a result, his debt ballooned to an unmanageable level.
It's over. There's nothing I can do.
Ultimately, he chose to file for bankruptcy and is now living a bare minimum life. As for me, leaving that house was the catalyst for starting my own law firm. Now, I spend my days running around helping those in need, living a fulfilling life.